Okay, hello and welcome to Inspired by Chaos. I'm Sophie.
And I'm Jordan.
And it has been way too long. This is episode 5, Calm, Bright, and Inclusive, Navigating the Holidays in Special Education. We have not seen any of you guys since Canadian Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Which is, it was like October 7th, I think.
Oh my gosh.
It's been a little while, so we have a lot of catching up to do. First of all, we just want to say we hope you had a happy holiday. What the heck? Is that the air conditioner? Perfect. Whatever it is, what it is.
Great.
We are at the beautiful Inspired by Studios. We might as well just take that in while we're here. Last time we recorded, we were on the floor and there was nothing in this space. And now it is a beautiful, gorgeous space. Is it everything you dreamed of?
Getting there.
It's going to take time.
Yeah, it definitely is. But even taking photos in here, it's definitely becoming.
The lighting is beautiful.
Yeah.
Everything looks so good. We're so excited to record in here. But we do want to say happy holidays. Today is New Year's Eve.
Yes.
So last time we saw you, it was Thanksgiving Sunday, and now we're back on New Year's Eve. And we will be more regular now that the space is here.
Yeah.
And we'll give you a couple life updates as to why we have been MIA. But lots of people were asking about the podcast over the holidays, which makes me feel so happy and excited. It makes me happy to get back at it and feel motivated. So we know that this can be a very magical yet challenging time, especially when we're dealing with students in special education. So we're going to give you all of our kind of behind the scenes, preparing the kids to go on break and come back from break. Let's start with a couple life updates. Do you want to start?
Okay. The biggest update, I feel like, is that I am having a baby.
A baby.
Yeah. So it kind of worked out great because I am literally here for the whole school year.
Yes.
And
Thank God.
I'll be ready to pop literally the last week of school. And I have C-section, so scheduled. I'll know exactly when I'm off. So I literally won't be there the last week of school.
Yeah.
But it kind of worked out well.
I can handle a week.
Yeah. And the year after.
And that's the part. We're not going to talk about that yet. We'll talk about that when we get there.
But yeah, so that's exciting. For those of you who don't know me well, this is my 4th baby.
She's crazy.
Yeah, a little bit. 4th and final. So yeah.
You said that last time, I think.
No, this is like for real.
This is it.
No more.
This is it.
So that's exciting.
Baby Studio's been up and running.
Yes, the studio has been. It's been a journey, and definitely didn't expect both of those major life events to happen at once.
For sure.
So getting the studio up and running, it's been rewarding, but also extremely stressful.
Yeah.
Sophie's actually helped me in many ways, especially
I'm so excited about it.
The weekend we opened, the amount of anxiety that was running through me. So Sophie helped me come and get it together.
We built a few things, got the tools out.
Yeah.
We did our best. They came together very quickly though. It was good.
Yeah, no, it was good.
It's actually funny because Jordan told me about the baby in class. So we take turns buying each other teas every morning. And she came in that morning with my tea, and on it was auntie, but there was I had no idea it was coming, and I was talking to one of the kids or something, and she just comes over and hands it to me and is staring at me and I'm looking at her, processing that she's not going to be there for a year, but I'm also really excited. And I was like, oh my God. And then I'm trying not to have a big reaction because I didn't want anyone to be like, Miss Campbell, what's going on? So it was a silent, I hugged her, which I also think was weird because the kids are like, what the heck is happening?
I know.
But I was so excited to hear in that way, for sure.
Yeah.
And I've known from really early, which has been nice.
She knew the day that I peed is when she knew. She knew before my husband knew.
I did ask her. I was like, what did he say? She's like, oh, he doesn't know. I was like, oh, okay. So that was super, super exciting. But then we had a break. We went on a little hiatus, and that's also a big reason that we weren't in here, is just we didn't have much to talk about because we went off on our own for about a month.
Yeah. So obviously with pregnancy can come some horrible things.
And especially when you're exhausted from having a studio, a full-time job, a photography business, and 3 other kids. You can't imagine.
Yeah, it was a lot. And I was extremely sick to the point where I just couldn't, I couldn't get myself to work. No, I just couldn't get up in the morning. I couldn't get myself past the bathroom, really. So I needed to take some time off of work because I just wouldn't have been any use. I would have been late every day. There's no way I would have made it in on time. And I probably would have spent half the day in the bathroom. So there was really I knew that it would be better for somebody else to be in my place while I got myself together.
And we survived. We managed.
Yeah.
It was tricky, but we managed for sure.
No, for sure.
It's good practice for next year.
And now we're back. And now I'm back.
Yes.
And we're back in action. We're back to doing this. Literally, that was one of the reasons we couldn't record, is because I knew
say that.
I was going to be sick the whole time.
It wasn't going to be a very aesthetic episode. It would have been an ASMR you probably didn't want to be a part of, because she went straight from having the cough to being sick. And I was like, okay, let's like put it on the back burner. Let's, get the studio up and running, take care of the kiddos, take care of yourself. We'll come back when we have some time to downtime to figure it out.
Yeah. So now we're back. Updates for you?
Oh yeah. I moved into a house, which is really, really exciting. My boyfriend and I living in a house now, which is great also because I'm really bad at taking content for anything, because I'm like, I always kind of had like people around me and I was so embarrassed and felt so awkward about it. But now when everybody's gone in the morning, I'm like right on my phone being like, okay, let's talk about things. Because if you didn't know, I like to yap. If you're listening to this, I'm sure you know. So I was kind of moving while Jordan was growing a baby, and we just had 1,000,001 things going on. I was finishing up finals for my semester for school. So it was just a really busy couple of months, but I think the rest and everything kind of prepared us and got us ready to really like dive in for the new year and just be doing this more often. And I'm very excited.
Yeah, we missed it.
Yeah, we definitely missed it for sure. So we wanted to try and talk about just incorporating and involving all students and their traditions in our classroom. This has been like, it's difficult, honestly. Like even you and I have different traditions. I don't know do you want to talk a little bit about your holiday traditions growing up and how they've changed as an adult?
Yeah. So I grew up, my mom being Catholic, my dad being Jewish, and they raised us with both. So we did both traditions. We did Christmas, we did Hanukkah, we did all the holidays in between. So the Easters and the Passover, and like we did everything. And when we were younger, the reason they kind of did this for us is because they said, well, when you guys are older, we want you to decide what you would like to do, what fits and sits right with you. So they kind of gave us everything and then said, like, do what you want when you're older. And then as I got older and started having kids, it aligned and made more sense for me and what my beliefs were to celebrate Hanukkah. So between my husband and I, we kind of just said, I think this is what we want to do. This is what we both of us kind of are on the same page for that. So we kind of said, like, this is what makes sense for us. This is what we want our kids being raised with. So we just made a choice, I think when my eldest was about 5, to move forward with, actually, no, he must have been about 7, to move forward with just the Jewish traditions. So we no longer at home celebrate Christmas. We no longer celebrate Easter, which was an adjustment. It was.
Sure it would be, yeah.
Yeah, even though I knew it was something that I wanted to do, going 30-something years celebrating all of these things, it was a change. It was a huge adjustment. It was a huge change. And not just for me, for my family. Yeah. That was a big piece too. And because it's something I knew I wanted to do, it was an adjustment, but it felt right. Yeah,
because it aligned with what you wanted in that time ago.
Yeah, right? But for my family, it definitely was a harder transition because they just weren't seeing it the same way. Yeah. But they've definitely come around and they've definitely respected what I want for our kids and what we want them believing. So we navigate it, and it can be tricky sometimes, especially within the public school system. It can be. Yeah, for sure. So we navigate all those things.
You don't hear about a lot of people celebrating Hanukkah in the public school system. You really don't. Yeah. And I think I've learned a lot too. And just even this year, I remembered to say happy Hanukkah because I was like, oh, it lands on Christmas this year. Like I need to remember to say it. But it is, I've definitely learned a lot. And it's so funny because like I'll be in like Winners now and see Hanukkah stuff and be like, look, Jordan, look. Yeah. It like makes me excited to see that it's being included, right?
Yeah.
And we are in a very, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but we're in like a very diverse area in our school. So we kind of have to be mindful to celebrate all the different things and mindful of our language. And we'll touch on that later. But yeah, so I've definitely learned a lot from you celebrating Hanukkah. Yeah. Hence the menorah over there, if you guys didn't notice, and the menorah pajamas.
Yeah. And also, I thought it was really fun because I know in the last episode we brought up the fact that I was going to be going to your mom, the whole Christmas, her mom
it was always
on, like, a little Christmas craft day.
Yes.
And what I loved was that the crafts were made very like
wintry. Yeah. And like, my mom like changed it. She's like, it's a winter craft day. Like if Jordan's coming, it's a winter craft day.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciate. But my parents have always been very inclusive. So like they were excited. They would take it on as a challenge.
Yeah.
They're like,
which was tons of fun, by the way. Like I had the best day.
It was so much fun. And you hadn't been out in so long because you were so sick.
Yes.
So it was kind of nice because I hadn't seen her at work, hadn't really seen her anywhere. So it was kind of nice to like remove ourselves from the classroom and you actually ate food and you were okay.
It was literally 2 days. It fell 2 days after I started some medication for my sickness.
Yeah.
And so I literally was cooped up in my house for, at that point, probably like 3.5 weeks. I didn't go anywhere because I couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I had made the attempt to go out. I knew I had some medication and hopefully that would make me feel good. Yeah. And it was the first time and I ate. It was delicious and I ate.
They're always happy when people eat. So
it was tons of fun.
Yeah. I grew up celebrating Christmas and I think honestly growing up, we did celebrate Christmas from like kind of a religious angle. Like my grandparents were both super religious. My parents like do believe in religion, but it was never something that they like pushed on us at all. They always had kind of the same idea that it's like, we'll give you the tools and the options and the information. And then when you get older, you can decide kind of what you want to believe and what you want to celebrate. So we grew up with Christmas and I learned like the whole story, religious story behind Christmas. And I really enjoyed experiencing that as a child. Like honestly, it was something we did every year. And I really appreciated it. As an adult now, my boyfriend and I now, we just kind of go with more like the holiday of giving and the spirit of giving. And we do call it Christmas and we have a Christmas tree. We celebrate Christmas, but it's not so much religious. It's just more about giving. And we just try to be as inclusive as we can to like everybody's needs and everything that people celebrate. It's actually really funny. My mom was so upset this year because when I was younger, on Christmas, I think I was like 3 years old, she was putting out desserts and I was like, where's the cake? And my mom's like, oh, like I didn't make a cake. And I was like, I'm not understanding because like it's Jesus's birthday and like we aren't going to have a cake. And then she was like, okay. So every year after that, still to this day, we bake baby Jesus a birthday cake.
So funny.
And it has like a little like plasticine Jesus on it. And she couldn't find it this year.
Oh, no.
And I got there and she's like, listen, I have the cake, but I can't find Jesus. I'm like, that's concerning.
That is.
But we still continue the tradition of like baking baby Jesus a cake for his birthday.
That is amazing.
Right?
That is such a your mom thing to do.
It is, right? And and it's also like such a me thing to be so literal and be like, what do you mean? There's no birthday cake.
Makes 0 sense to me.
Yeah. The one thing we wanted to touch on before we kind of move on to our next segment here is this time of year is trash for illness.
Yes.
Like sending love to everybody who's going through the virus right now because there's just so much going around. And honestly, I am someone who's usually able to stay away from it pretty well. I got back-to-back strep and stomach flu and it knocked me on my butt. Yeah. Like I think the most days I've ever taken off consecutively is 2 days, like usually 48 hours and I can rally. I was off for 4 days with strep, came back for 1 day and was knocked out with the stomach flu for another like 3 days. Like, and for us, that's almost all of our sick days.
Yeah.
Like I used almost all of my sick days for the entire year in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, I guess. But I just keep thinking like flu season's not over until like January or February. Like God forbid we get it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at this point, Jordan was still off too.
Yeah.
So the poor teacher in our room, I felt so bad because every time I got sick, I was like, I'm so sorry. But when kids are coming to school with symptoms of things and maybe coming back when they're not fully recovered. We are the front line. We are wiping the noses. We are doing all of that stuff. So
the sneezes right on us.
Right? I've definitely caught a sneeze in the mouth or like a snot in the hair. It happens. Like it is part of the job. So we are the first line of defense. So we're usually the first ones out with, I think, the least sick days, but it is what it is. The math is not mathing.
No.
Yeah. But yeah. Okay, for our first segment, we're going to be talking about embracing diversity during the holidays and some things that we have done in the classroom to celebrate. First thing we want to do is do a little call to action and encourage you guys to share your favorite holiday classroom memories on our social media. You can do that by commenting on our post. We're going to be posting this episode hopefully very soon and give you guys time to listen to it over your holiday break. So the first thing that we want to touch on, which we touched on briefly, is just being mindful of language around this time of year. I am still catching myself. I really do need to be more mindful with the like happy holidays thing. And like I said, I honestly feel like you have been a big part of that because I'm always like, Christmas this, Christmas that, Christmas whatever. And now I'm like, okay, no, like one of my best friends. There you go. You're welcome, best friend.
That was me. I didn't know she was talking about me there.
We're not doing this again.
Which best friend are you talking about?
Celebrate something that's not Christmas. So that has made me a lot more mindful to be inclusive of my language. And like I said, we're not doing this again. Like we already did this one time. And
every time. Okay, continue. I'm good.
Deep breath.
I'm composed. We're good.
Do you need to do some co-regulation to get yourself back on track? It doesn't help that she's pregnant now. The emotions are just like all over the place.
Okay.
So I do feel definitely a lot more mindful now. And like I said, we work in a very diverse area. So there can be a lot of blending of traditions, right? Like a lot of people in our area that we work in like are coming to Canada for the first time. So they're bringing traditions with them and then creating new traditions with the celebrations that we have here. So it's just something to be, but I think we're very intuitive to that.
Yeah. We definitely something like, I feel like we're always, first of all, sometimes it's hard for me too. Like sometimes I catch myself even with like the happy holidays and stuff like that. Not that I go up to people and I'm like, happy Hanukkah. I know that not everybody celebrates Hanukkah. But even just like, I still have to like give myself like that thought of like, like Sophie, my best friend, just joking. She's going to say it all the time now. When she messaged to say happy Hanukkah, it still is like, oh yes, you still have to say like Merry Christmas back because she doesn't celebrate Hanukkah. You can't say you too. Like,
just be mindful,
whatever.
Right?
Yeah. So I think it goes every way. And like, but I definitely have tried to change my language to just say happy holidays versus anything else, just to be as inclusive as possible.
And I think that it's all part of being inclusive and making our students feel included. And we do really try as best as they can communicate to figure out like, what is it that you do at home? Like, when we, like, for example, we do put up a Christmas tree in our classroom, but we do a whole bunch of other things as well. When we put up the tree, we're like, does this look familiar? Like, do you have this in your house?
Yeah.
Like, do you
open presents at home?
I was hanging up the stockings and I was trying to get from one of our students, like,
do you have this at home?
And I was like, do you have this at home? Like, have you seen this? And he was like, this is socks. And I was like, literally, yeah. Like, sorry, that was a silly question. You're right. It is socks. Never mind. Like,
yep.
I was laughing so hard.
Yes,
I was like,
socks.
You're right. I'm wrong. That was weird. But I think we do ask them and say like, what is it that you do? Or like, do you see family? And some of them don't. Like some of their family is like not in this country or some of them travel.
Yeah.
We have students, like multiple students in all the years that I've taught here have taken off for like a month or two and they'll go visit family in Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka.
Yeah. I find it usually happens a few weeks before the break so that they can be gone for the break as well. And then they usually come back like right after the break.
Yeah. So it is really interesting just learning so much about them. And one of our current students, I find like his culture so interesting because he is a verbal student who can communicate a lot. And I have learned so much about Nepal as a country. So like I've listened to so much of the music, so much of the culture. I've learned just so much. Yeah. And he has visited. And I just find it so interesting to learn about the other cultures, learn about the other celebrations. And because he is so vocal and passionate about it, it's such an interesting thing to learn. It is super cool.
And he always finds connections. Like we'll be talking about something. He'll be like, oh, like that's what we do, or we do this. Like he always, and I love that. Like I love that he's able to teach us about the things that they do at home. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Cause I do, like we say all the time, like I definitely do learn as much from them as they learn from us. Like I feel like every day, whether it's just like my patients or like a life lesson or something about their personal life, I feel like I'm always learning. And that's one thing that I do love about this job so much is it's never like stagnant. You're never like, you never have all the knowledge. That's never going to happen. No. And you have to be someone who's willing to learn and willing to grow and not think that you carry all the answers because you don't.
Yeah.
you never will.
Nope.
That sounds negative, but it's true. You have to be willing to be flexible.
Yeah.
We've had some really successful like holiday traditions in our classroom and things that we have incorporated. Jordan actually did a really awesome little lesson on Hanukkah last year.
Last year? I think it was last year, yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that I found really important about that I wanted to share is I think it's important to like give the voice to the person who experiences it. Like I never would have been like, hey, I'm going to teach you about Hanukkah because I don't celebrate it and I can't speak to it as much. And so giving the power back to the person who actually is passionate about it. And it reminds me a little bit about when we do Indigenous studies in our school board. We actually have someone who is Indigenous who comes in and teaches us about the traditions in a way that is appropriate, right? I wouldn't feel right speaking on something that doesn't resonate with me or something I have no experience in, basically. I don't remember what you did for that. What did we do for that?
Oh, I remember there was like a book. I brought in dreidels. I think I showed my menorah.
Yeah.
I feel like we did that. We baked, for cooking, we did latkes.
Yes. Those were so good.
Yeah.
One of the kids was like hash browns. I was like, very similar.
Yeah, pretty much.
Good connection.
I was actually going to make latkes for today, but didn't happen. But yeah, it was good because we tied everything in, and it's important. I think one of the things we wanted to do that we didn't really get around to doing was we wanted to actually, I think we may have, but I don't know if we got all the responses back, but we wanted to really hone in on like the traditions that the kids that we work with, in that year that we're like that specific year, what they do at home so that we can make sure we're acknowledging everything that they celebrate.
For sure.
I don't think we got responses back. I think that was the issue, which is fine because we try our best to figure out what they are celebrating at home, because we want to incorporate that a lot more. I would love, and I know we had chatted about this at one point, I would absolutely love it if we could get, I don't know, when I was a kid, we always had things where like,
with families?
Yes. And like I would do like, let's say I was talking about Hanukkah as a kid, like a parent or I don't even know if all the time a parent would come, but sometimes a parent would come in with you to talk about it. And they'd bring like, I remember my friend actually, I had one Jewish friend. I don't remember having a lot of them, but I had one Jewish friend in my classes all the time. And she was very like passionate about it.
Yeah.
And at the time I was doing everything. So she was kind of like the Jewish person. And her mom would come in, I believe, with her, and they would bring in latkes, and they'd bring you eat latkes with either sour cream or applesauce, and they'd have them. And then they'd talk about Hanukkah, and like, it was like a parent kid thing.
Yeah.
And I would love to be able to introduce that in our classroom and have like, some of the traditions that we don't generally see or experience ourselves.
Especially because some of our kids are not speaking. And so we can do our best, to learn about their culture, but we may not know what they exactly experience at home. So to have a parent come in and be like, this is a food that they love and this is what we do at home. And it gives the opportunity for the other students to learn a little bit more about their peer as well.
And for us to be able to learn about like what they're doing at home and what foods they enjoy. And I know that's something we talked about wanting to really introduce in our cooking days, is being able to be more culturally inclusive and start cooking things that we like believe they're eating at home. We do have a student
or what they bring for lunch. Sometimes I'll be like, what is that? And they'll be like, oh, it's this. And it's a Tamil food. And I'm like, okay. And then it's something that we can add to our like repertoire for cooking. Because it's just important. Like we don't want to be just making like, of course we worry about independence and we want it to be things that they can make, like a grilled cheese or a sandwich or whatever. But we can find ways to incorporate those things. We do get pretty creative with that. But I think the parent engagement is something for sure. I won't say next year because Jordan won't be there when she returns. when she returns that we can consider for sure.
Yeah.
Like I said, we do put up a Christmas tree with our students and we decorate it, and they do enjoy that because there are a few that connect to that.
Fun fact about the Christmas tree and our Christmas setup, it was all my stuff before I switched to just celebrating Hanukkah. So we have like a full big Christmas tree, all the decorations, stockings, like everything.
There was
like
angels,
I don't
stars,
need it
all
anymore.
this stuff. Do you know how badly when I moved into our new house we just moved into, I didn't have a Christmas tree at first, and I was like, do I just take Jordan's Christmas tree? Like, I was like, maybe I should just take it. And then when we like fluffed it up, I was looking at it and I was like, is that fluffier than mine? But I think it's shorter than mine. Yes. But I was like, for a second, should I? Because my parents were like, we'll buy you like your first tree. And then I was like,
funny. That would
I
have been
could
cute.
steal Jordan's. Yeah. So definitely just like being mindful of language, being mindful that we're celebrating everything that our students celebrate. And another thing is I always use some people. Like we have one student was asking about Santa and was just like, you know, is Santa going to their house? And we said, like, some people believe in Santa.
Yeah.
Some people celebrate Hanukkah. Some people celebrate Kwanzaa. Some people celebrate Christmas.
Yeah.
So nothing becomes like the norm.
Yeah.
It's not like most people celebrate this and then some other people celebrate this. It's like some people do this, some people do that, just so it all kind of is like on a level playing field.
And I think for the most part, we're pretty aware and diverse in like things that we are doing. So I don't think we really do like Santa crafts.
No,
or
it's
not
more
like,
like
winter and like
yeah,
we
it's
keep
more
it very
winter and more whatever. Even when we did, which I guess we can talk about now, we did a couple holiday activities this year, which was really fun. We did a holiday parent engagement day, which we set up a holiday cafe, and it was the cutest thing. I don't know why I was emotional. Like, I'm really not that emotional at work, but this day made me very emotional because I was so proud of the kids. We had baked things in advance, like, you know, simpler things. We did Rice Krispies. I did some sugar cookies on my own, and we did some chocolate fudge or something. And Jordan had ordered the cutest stuff off of Amazon. It was like,
I got to be a part of the planning, but then I ended up being off.
And
so
then
I
she got
actually didn't
sick.
get to see it unfold.
So I was like trying to like unfold the vision, but she wasn't there. So I was like, oh my God. So I took a lot of like photos and videos and stuff to make her feel included. I was hoping like you would have been well enough to even stop by, but I know
it was rough.
It was rough at that time. But Jordan had ordered like the cutest wrapping, the cutest like little paper bags. I ordered just like the French vanilla and the hot chocolate individual packets. They come in like a big box, the Tim Hortons brand, some disposable coffee cups and the warmer or the whatever they are, and then the plastic lids. And we just basically set it up as like one student ran a drink station, one student ran the food station, and then we had crafts in the middle. And our crafts were like hot chocolate crafts. Like they were very neutral, I guess, more like winter. And we had different adaptations. We had like a card writing station with different adaptations. So they could either like glue on the happy holidays, or they could trace it, or they could write it. But just watching our kids interact with the parents and the teachers that came in was such like a proud moment. Like one of our students was like, hi there, like, what can I get for you today? And they would order, she would take like a quarter, wrap up the treat, use tongs to like put it in the bag. And it was like at that moment that it clicked, like, okay, like these students could work at a Tim Hortons. They could hold a job. They could, like, I'm seeing them now at, 10, 12, 14 years old. And I'm like, they have so much potential. And these kind of activities that we plan for them prepare them for future jobs that they could hold.
Yeah.
So it was such a nice thing to see. I definitely would like to do it again and hopefully get more engagement, just more parents in, more staff in. Yeah. But it was a really nice thing to see. And we had all the leftover stuff. So we did our cart, which I thought that was fun.
Yes.
I would do that again.
We did a holiday cart. What we did is Sophie ended up putting out like a
Google form.
Yeah. Google form. There you go. We already
Google
talked about
stuff,
this.
right?
I'm just not good at that stuff. Sent out a Google form to the teachers in the school. And they were able to kind of sign up and say if they wanted a French vanilla or a hot chocolate delivered to them at some point in the week, that last week of school. And then the kids got to deliver them. So we did it the first time. We did it with all the kids that were there. Because of all the sicknesses, we had a lot of kids off.
This last week was like, ooh.
Yeah. We only had a few kids in, which was sad. Like we wanted to see them all, but we also wanted them to be healthy coming to school.
Yeah, for sure.
So the first time we did a run, which was the majority of the deliveries, we had each of the kids doing a job. So someone was pushing the cart. Someone was looking for the numbers, the classroom numbers.
And then the door knocker.
Oh yeah. We had a door knocker. And then we had someone who specifically would say like, we're here to deliver your drink.
Yeah. Find their name on the list and like highlight it.
Yeah.
It was good.
It was fun. And everyone, but again, it's teaching them those skills, right?
Yep.
And that was, I mean, in everything we do, we want to somehow tie it into a life skill, like something that they can use and learn from. And it was so good. The teachers appreciated it so much.
They keep asking, they're like, if you guys did like a Friday coffee cart, like I think people would pay like real money for like a Friday afternoon to not have to go out at lunch. And you know, it's something that we wanted to do for years.
Yeah.
And we know other places have done this. So please, if you have information that makes this run more smoothly, like let us know. We are in elementary, so I know that that does make a difference, but we have some very, very capable students and we're willing to take on the challenge as well. I know the first couple times are not going to be smooth, but
I know
it went very well, I thought.
Yeah.
And it was well appreciated. It's definitely something that I would do again for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, our next segment is about challenges during the holidays, challenges that educators face, challenges that families can face. We definitely know there's just a lot going on. I mean, it's challenging for all of us as individuals, just like financially and our social battery. And it's just a lot. So when you add in students with special education needs, like it's very complicated. One of the things we do have to consider is managing sensory overload at holiday events.
Yep.
For example, like there's like holiday concerts at our school, or there's like parades, or there's, you know, decoration contests. And that is just a lot of change.
Yeah.
And like it can cause like a lot of sensory overload. Like we try to be as prepared as we can be for concerts and stuff.
Yeah.
And we can talk a bit about the bucket that we bring. Remember we used to bring a bucket down? I don't know if we've
I think
we've
just been bringing a couple things like
here
and
and
there. Yeah.
Just having like our, making sure we're prepared with like noise canceling headphones, fidget toys, offering breaks, having scheduled breaks that are taken regardless of where you are.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the cart ride actually. We have a student who goes pretty consistently on a walk at the same time every day. And sometimes we forget that when we're in a concert or something, we're just like caught up in the concert and trying to manage all the children and everything. And then they'll be like, excuse me, it's time for my walk. And we're like, oh right.
Is. Yeah.
And I think there was a point, I can speak for myself on this, that I was always like, well, why don't you try and stay and be a part of it and whatever. And then I realized like that is so ingrained in their mind, and they probably look forward to regulating themselves to that point.
Yeah.
And they may not have the threshold to go past that. So I've definitely adjusted my mindset for sure and been like, you're free to go. Like, go do your regular walk.
And I think sometimes when we're there and when we're present, that student is able to sometimes push a little bit further
and engage,
and longer. We did like this year, we had our assembly, which we have every year.
Yeah.
But I almost just said Miss Campo. Sophie was with another student.
Yes.
No.
I had gone to pick up a student who came in late, who always we do soft start for some of our students. So I was out of the gym. I was not a part of the assembly at this time.
Yeah, because we wanted to stick to that same routine. It is super important for that student to stick to that routine.
Yeah.
So Sophie left to do that with that student. And then one of our other students was just having not a great time. So I ended up leaving with that student to go to the sensory room.
Yeah.
So I think you were in gross motor.
Yeah.
And I was in sensory.
Yeah.
So the other student who normally could have probably pushed a little bit further during the assembly, because that student does like assemblies.
Yes.
But I think because we were gone.
Yeah.
There was less, not that our teacher is amazing. So it's not that, but then the student just specifically
requires like a certain amount of attention and a certain kind of attention. Yeah. And also the hardest part about this too is when an assembly is happening, you can't really effectively make a walkie-talkie call. That's the thing is like, I might want to communicate with Jordan saying like, I'm trying to settle the student. I might need some backup. It's not working. Whereas she's, de-escalating another student. But to make that call, you then have parents listening. You have the entire school listening. Like everyone is together in one room. So every walkie-talkie is going to go off basically. And obviously we call when we need it. We're mindful of confidentiality. But it is like, oh, do I need to make this call right now? Or can I do this solo?
And this is the first year we've had to really navigate not being in our assembly.
Yeah.
I feel like for the most part, all of our kids
could make it
through our assemblies. This is the first year it hasn't been like that.
Yeah, we just have different needs and different schedules, and with our scheduled breaks, I find that does make a difference because we have changed our mindset a little bit about realizing, okay, these kids require that.
Yeah. And we don't want to push them.
No,
we don't want to push them like just because like we want them to be successful in their day.
Yes.
That's ultimately what we want.
Yeah.
And if an assembly, making them sit through an assembly that they're not like, it's just not going to work for them, is going to set off their whole day and make them so they won't earn their rewards and they won't.
It makes no sense to me to be like, if you don't sit through Jingle Bells, which is probably very loud and overstimulating, then you won't get a token. Like, that's just not our philosophy at all.
Yeah. So
we can read our students pretty well.
Yeah.
That I think we're read the room. Okay, why don't we go for a little walk? Or why? And sometimes if you phrase it as not as a break, like, oh, could you come help me with something for a second? I really need to borrow you for a sec. They just go for a little walk with you. Maybe you fill up your water bottle and you come back, and sometimes that's enough to reset them to kind of regulate.
Yeah.
But we definitely try and be as prepared as possible. We used to have like a bin that we would bring that had headphones and fidgets and whatever. Some of our students even required an iPad here and there.
Yeah.
We've kind of moved away from that.
Yeah.
Because we would like them to be involved as possible when we're there.
Yeah.
But just being prepared, being mindful, and reading the room. If it is not working, it is not working.
Yeah.
And that is fine.
Yeah.
We're not going to sit there while they're crying and overstimulated just for the sake of being there. That's not what inclusion looks like.
Yeah. And we definitely always want to be mindful of like the whole school's there. Yeah. So as much as we know behaviors are going to happen, we always want to make sure that they are protected and their dignity is protected. And so we don't have them leave because they're being too loud or
never.
That's never what it is. Our teachers are very, very inclusive when it comes to that. And they will never tell us to get out. Like they would never even dream of it. So they're very inclusive. But for our own kids, if they are upset or we can see behavior starting to escalate for their own dignity and for their own just to protect them.
Let's go co-regulate in a private space. Yeah. Because there is such a big difference from stimming and being dysregulated. Yes. Like if our students are stimming and making vocalizations and hand flapping and doing whatever, we would never be like, oh my God, we have to leave. This is embarrassing. No, do it louder. I don't care. Like we are here. We're like loud and proud and we're here enjoying it the way that we enjoy it. Yeah. However, if we can see that the music and the crowds are distressing them, that's when we would say, hey, let's take a little walk and go try and co-regulate somewhere else. But the stimming piece, if anybody ever tried to say like they're being a little bit loud during the performance, I think I would get very angry.
I'd probably join in.
Louder. No. One of the things we talked about was preparing for the students' arrival, because the transition back to school is not only difficult because they've been out of their school routine, but we have to consider that their home routine may have been disrupted as well.
Right.
So it's not like they're home and, this just feels like an extended weekend. Like there may have been people in their house. They may have been out of their house. They may have been at a busy mall. Mm-hmm. So they're not only coming back from being out of our typical structure, they've been disrupted.
Yeah.
So I think we really need to be mindful of resetting ourselves and regulating ourselves over the break because the week back is a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things I don't know why, I don't really know why I feel it's so important, but one of the things I'm always like, it needs to get done. It needs to get done. Like it's to take down everything.
Yes.
Like I don't know why that piece, maybe it's just me.
No, I agree.
Like it just like, I feel like if we're coming back, we need to just reset, know that the holidays are done.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be doing all these special events that are a change in your schedule constantly because it is a lot. It's a lot for them. It's a lot for us. Like all of those, it's constant changes in those last few weeks before the break. Things that they're just not used to doing. So I feel like it's just like let's just get everything out of here, reset, like we're coming back.
We usually put like a a show on or something on the last day, take down the Christmas tree, take down the stockings, clean the kitchen, clean out the fridge, do everything we can so that we can not only have a clean slate for them, but for us.
Yeah.
Because when we're coming back to clutter everywhere after we've just been probably in clutter everywhere at our house because just the holidays, it's just nice to kind of have a reset for everybody.
Yeah.
But we just have to make sure that our, like we're regulated for ourselves because it requires a lot of patience.
Yeah.
Next week is going to be tricky. We know that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, that's nobody's fault.
Yeah.
Just the holidays are hard for everybody. It's a hard adjustment. Never mind if you are coming back with someone who has a difficult time with transitions.
Yeah.
We just have to be patient. That's all.
Yeah.
I saw a really incredible video I was telling Jordan about. One of my favorite creators on TikTok. Her name is Kaylee Compton, I believe. And she is a parent of a child with ASD. She is an incredible advocate for her child. And she has just recently been diagnosed with ASD herself. If you get a chance to check her out, you please do. It just gives you a really new perspective, a fresh perspective on inclusion and diversity and everything. But she posted this really, really insightful video just about what the holidays look like for her family and how it's okay that if your family's holiday looks different than everybody else's and that's what works for your kids, that's fine. Mm-hmm. She talked a little bit about her son. She doesn't wrap gifts for her son, but she wraps them for her daughter. She's really individualizing and accommodating what works for her family. They do drop-in visits, and if after 20 minutes they need to leave, then that's it. They don't put that pressure on. They don't put that guilt. They stick to a pretty rigid routine over the break because that's what her children need. Yeah. And I think just seeing it from that perspective and recognizing that it is okay to make adjustments for what works for your family. And you don't want to have that guilting yourself because at the end of the day, the holidays are supposed to be enjoyable and shared with the people that you love. So what is the point in overstimulating your family? Yeah. And then feeling frustrated and defeated at the end of the day when, if you care about the people around you, you want to do what's best to accommodate for them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
She's such a really incredible creator. You should definitely go check her out for sure. I guess we can touch briefly on behavior changes in students leading up to the break.
Leading up to the break.
We talked about after the break, but leading up is just as tricky, I find.
Yeah. I think obviously, even for our students who are nonverbal, like I kind of mentioned and we've been talking about, the change is felt. So it's kind of hard not to because even with Sophie saying when you have all these the door decorating contest and the parade and the assemblies and the concerts, all of these things that generally don't happen all of a sudden are happening at once. So their schedule, their changes in their schedules are happening daily. Mm-hmm. So something they've had such a strict routine on, or structured routine every day is now thrown off. So we do see an escalation in our behaviors a lot of times with many of our students just because of all of these changes. And like I said, Sophie and I are so good at just, or mindful, I would say, of not forcing the change. So if students are not adapting well to whatever change is put in place, then we will usually in the sensory room, because that's usually what's available. Pivot, whatever they require in that moment is what they get. Mm-hmm. So if they're just, the change is too much for them, then one of us we'll end up with that student somewhere else.
I was going to say, even we did a door decorating competition based on a book each class had read. And there were so many sensory tactile things on these door decorations in the hallway. Yes. And we have students that are so sensory. So now they're used to just walking in the hallway down to their cubby. Well, now there's 8 things with feathers next to them on the hallway. And it's they can't get to their cubby because it's I've got to rip up that feather, or I've got to touch that, or I've got to do that. And it's just small things like that you wouldn't even take in individually that would affect you. Yeah. It's now taking us 10, 15 minutes to get down the hallway, when before it was just, I walk in, I take off my stuff in 2 minutes. Now it's oh my gosh, there's 85 tinsel, play with that. Distractions. There's tinsel everywhere. It's just so funny how many changes there are that we don't even notice. Yeah. We feel it and they feel it 10 times more. Yeah. I feel. Yeah. So you just have to be so mindful. Yeah. And there are students who are really anxious about the break in school. Some of our students really do love being at school and they love the structure. Yeah. So it's a hard thing to hide. It is a hard thing to say, like, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. Are we at school next week? Are we at school next week? And sometimes it's better to give them the heads up, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
It's so individualized. So one of our students, we really try not to, just because of the anxiety that it creates. But you can feel it. It's like a palpable change that like everyone's getting more and more riled up towards that Friday.
Yeah.
And we kind of just deal with that by keeping them busy.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about with jobs and errands and things that we can tie in with our life skills.
Yeah.
But also just allowing them to feel helpful, feel useful, stay busy so that they aren't having that like ticking time clock in the back of their mind saying like, I'm not coming back on Monday. I'm not coming back on Monday.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's kind of our go-to.
Yeah. But I will say, we've had students who haven't made it to the break. They've ended up staying home or being kept home.
It's too much.
Because the anxiety leading up to the break is just too much, that the behaviors just end up a lot.
Yeah.
And parents make the choice to keep them home. And what I will say is now it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
That a specific student that sometimes did not make it, most times did not, has successfully made it to the break.
And that's a huge win.
Yeah.
Huge. And, days may not look perfect, but knowing that we get to have this student and celebrate with them and get to involve them in all of these things has been such a massive win.
Yeah.
Just to even have them present there. So that has been a huge win in itself.
Yeah. And I think we always kind of, Sophie and I, at the end of it, always kind of do a look and like, we made
like
it.
A high five. We did
we did it.
Yeah.
We did it.
We did what we could do.
Yeah.
And one of the things we talked about doing, I keep saying next year, maybe the year after.
I know. I feel bad. I can't be like, Sophie, put everything on hold for next year.
And we'll still have things like, it's not like we're going to not be on the podcast all year next year. It's going to be different. And I'll probably meet Jordan in a different way because we're going to be troubleshooting from afar.
Yeah.
Because it is still her position. She's still going to come back to the same classroom. So we'll be troubleshooting from afar. But one of the things we were talking about doing is kind of creating some kind of package for parents with like social stories and specifically designed visuals to send home to kind of help explain all these changes. Visuals like visiting family or like open present or like play in snow and things that they might not have had before. So they can use them if they do use a visual schedule at home. Some of our families do, some of them don't. Or even just having social stories about, being in a busy mall or visiting a family's house and, what's an appropriate behavior and what might not be an appropriate behavior. So that's something that we're looking forward to doing.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Even like on a ring or something. Send them home so they can show them on a ring.
Right. Something national teachers pay teachers. We keep talking about it and it is still building.
It is building. We just want to make sure when we launch it, it is full.
We don't want to like put out, here's a visual or like, here's a token board. It's going to be like, here is like a wealth of everything you could need from us.
Yeah.
And
so
it
is
coming.
On its way. Like we have a whole morning folder system that's up there.
We have a lot
that we're quite proud of. A life skills folder program that
a lot of classroom decor. And like one of the things that Jordan and I really align on is just using a lot of like muted colors and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I keep seeing this trend on TikTok where people are like trashing the like boho rainbow trend and whatever. But the thing is like, it's not really about that for us. Ours is about like the regulation that those calm colors bring.
Yeah.
Cause you always hear that term like sad beige mom and stuff. And like really it's not like we're trying to make everything, we love when things are aesthetic, but there's such a difference in a classroom that has like a calm, collected, like muted decor versus like really bright, overstimulating stuff everywhere. So that's like what we're hoping to have.
But we've also had 2 outside resources come in and complement the muted colors for that reason.
Yeah.
Just how calm and like, because it's so muted.
Yeah.
But
and to be fair, my brain needs that too. Like Jordan knows I am the most overstimulated human on the planet.
Yeah.
Not actually, but like pretty close. Like when we are having a conversation, sometimes there'll be like 8 kids making vocalizations and she's trying to tell me something and my eye will be twitching and she'll be like, I'll come back in 5. I'll come back in 5 minutes. And she knows. But I do think that that's why I feel so connected to these kids and sometimes understand what they need. Cause I'm like, I need it too. That overstimulation. Yeah. Or like there'll be a timer going off somewhere in the room and I'm like, where's the timer?
All the time.
And everyone's like, I don't hear a timer. And I'm like,
I know. And none of us hear it. And we're like, Sophie, there's no timer. But then it'll be extremely quiet.
It'll be on like volume 1.
And we'll hear it. And we're like,
yes. But it's funny because I'll see like a kid who can also hear it. And I'm like, I know, I'm finding it. Don't worry.
It's true. Yeah. It's very true.
So our last segment here is going to be our listener Q&A. If you don't know already, you can go into the link in our bio. You can fill out a little Google form there. It is all anonymous, so anything you submit, we won't be able to see who said it unless you want us to. And we will answer your question on the pod. And we also get input from listeners as well, which is amazing. We can kind of like troubleshoot as a community. Mm-hmm. The first thing we want to touch on though, is we did throw something out there to see if there were any really cool holiday initiatives from our listeners. And we did get some really good ones, which I'm excited to bring up today. A couple holiday initiatives from our listeners. One of our listeners threw a like PLP winter dance. And I think it was like for like 200 students. Yeah. And it's really funny because Jordan and I like fully had this planned for our like elementary section. It just did not pan out the way that we needed it to.
No.
For it to come
and you
through.
know what? Like I'm really interested to find out from the person who submitted this how you made it work, because there were so many things that like, I mean, also it was during the whole like me getting sick and not me getting sick, me getting pregnant and sick. And so it wasn't able to be put out the way we wanted to. But when we were thinking about it, we had so many concerns. And so I'm genuinely like, how did you make it happen? Because we do want to do it at some point. But we were thinking about like busing, like how do schools make it
basically worth it because busing is so expensive. And we were trying to think like, can we keep the attention of these students for 2 hours? And even then that's such a short time to be bussed in. So we just had so many things logistically we couldn't figure out. So we definitely need to connect and figure that out, because it was really like we threw the movie event last year, which we're going to talk a lot about. We have like a full episode that we'll kind of cover because we are going to run it again this year.
Yeah. Bigger.
So it is similar to this, and we like the idea of multi-school and everything, but we just had so many concerns about this specific type of activity. So I'm excited to learn more about that. So good on you. PLP dance for almost 200. One of our old coworkers, she was also working in PLP. She did a holiday fundraiser. She raised over $600 for local families in need. That was incredible. Shout out to our educators. They're always doing the most.
I know.
They're always doing the most.
I know.
And then also, another educator did a gift exchange between classes. And this is something I said I would love to do even just within our own class because of the amount of life skills that we could tie into it. Like even just the skill of empathy, like drawing somebody's name and going, okay, I know that Jordan likes tea or Jordan likes whatever, and knowing that this person likes this, so I should purchase this for them. It would make them happy. And even doing like a trip to the dollar store, money skills. Like there's just so many life skills that could be involved with this. So I would love to do that in the future is what I will say. I won't say next year. I don't think I'm going to tell Jordan anything I do next year.
No,
she's going to be like, what are you doing?
It's going to be so difficult, honestly, like off topic a little bit. It is going to be so difficult. Like I am obviously happy I'm having a baby. I'm going to love being off with my child. Like it's not that I won't, but this is such a huge part of my life. And like working in PLP with Sophie isn't just a job to me. It really genuinely isn't.
And it inspired all of this too. So it is hard, but it's going to be different, but I think it'll be different in a good way. We'll still work together. We're still going to be doing this. We can plan together. You just won't get paid for it.
I'm definitely going to have fear of missing out. I also told Sophie she needs to just send home folders for me to make or something, because
she's like, keep me busy. I'm like, won't you have a newborn? Like
also though, I have a very controlling aspect when it comes to like
it's so funny because I think I'm type A, but the folders do not fall in my category of what needs to be type A.
No. And like even when I came back from being off for a month, Sophie's like, oh, we made some folders. And I'm like,
Jordan's eye was twitching. She's like, you what? You touched the folders? I'm like, well, what was I supposed to do? I also can't, my issue is I can't sit for more than like 30 seconds at a time. And if I'm sitting, I'm usually have like, I'm sitting on the table or like one leg's on the table and I cut one piece out and then I lose it because I can't find it. And then it's just like a whole thing. So I'm not good at folders. I'll admit it. She likes to do the folders. So I'll just send them home. As long as you're going to volunteer work.
I don't really have, if I come back the next year with like folders that I just feel are not done how I would have done them. And it's not necessarily Sophie. I feel like Sophie
sometimes I pawn them off to the supplies. I'm like, So Jordan really likes when folders are done. So if you could just complete this pile and like all man the kids when we have downtime, which is rarely ever. Yeah. But then she sees them and she's like, who did the folders?
It's always like, it wasn't me.
And sometimes I tell her it was the supplies and it was me.
We listen and we don't judge.
Yeah, literally. Oh my God, that's funny. So we do have a listener question. And I think we've addressed similar things in the past, but maybe not this specific one. So we're going to run through it together as a team. The question today is, with so many different sensory needs in your classroom, how do you manage and organize those throughout the day so all of their sensory diet is being met? It is hard. Like, we've talked about this before, that we have students that require, like, they get so overstimulated with noise, and then other kids need like background noise to work. And like, there's just so many overlapping
sensory needs
that it is not an easy task.
Yeah. I think one of the main things that we've incorporated a lot this year, I think mostly because we learned it worked so well for one of our students last year, is like scheduled breaks.
Yeah.
I think that was a big one that was so successful for one of our students, that this year we've made it kind of a thing. Yep. If we in the beginning of the year noticed that a student was having every day a really hard time getting through morning circle or independent folders, or and then like not even just necessarily that portion of the day. So let's say they're going through morning circle, they get through it successfully, but then we move on to independent. That's not our schedule, but then we move on to independent and they go right into independent. And that's when they're starting to really get overstimulated. What we've learned is before they get to that point to incorporate a scheduled break. So that would look like, regardless of how they're doing, morning circle, when it's done, they'd receive a scheduled break. So they would automatically, right after morning circle, take a 5-minute break. And that could be anywhere, like whatever works for them. We have so many different spaces that like in that moment, we know we have a student right now whose scheduled break is coloring in our sensory room, which is attached to our classroom. And so now we've scheduled these breaks for that student, and it's been working.
It has been, yeah. And the thing is, you want to catch them before they get to that overstimulation, right? So even if they look calm, don't go,
they don't need it.
Fine, they don't need a break, because they may be just holding it together by a thread, and that next transition that you make is going to be a blow up.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes they almost like ration what they have until that point that they know they can no longer. So if they're like, I know I'm getting a break in 5 minutes, they're holding it together and then they're going, right? Yeah. So you can't look at them and then go, you look fine. Yeah. Just go do your independent. And we have found that works really well.
Yeah.
We have multiple students on this program, and sometimes it is a fight at first because there are some kids that are just so routine based. So using those visuals to really incorporate those scheduled breaks, and also just having many different areas. Yeah. So we have 3 different spaces specifically that we use. We have a quiet corner in our classroom, which is like, you still have the noise of the classroom, but there's bean bags there, and there's
headphones,
maybe some louder sensory toys, like some like beads and stuff. And then we have our sensory room that is attached to our classroom, which is basically like lights and like silence, sometimes classical music. The lights are off. It is very, very calming. And there's windows in the door so we can like see, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, they can really have private time in there. Whereas the cozy corner or whatever in our classroom is a little bit more open. Yeah. And then we have the gross motor room that's directly across the hall, which is for those kids that need to go on the trampoline, they need to go on the bike, they need to move. And so just figuring out which of those works best for those kids and how to best incorporate that into their schedule. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
I think, but I do think with all of the sensory needs, having those scheduled breaks that are individualized for all of them is kind of what makes it so successful for us
put it
this
on
year.
Their schedule, use a first then, use visual timers, sand timers, iPad timers, anything like that.
Yeah.
And make it clear that this is your time to take a break.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have had defiance a little bit, where they're having a rough day and they're like, I'm not going on my break, I'm not going on my break kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And we just kind of ignore when safe and refer them to their schedule.
Yeah.
Ignore when safe, refer to schedule, and their schedule says break and then whatever. And even if it takes them 15 minutes to sit there and process that, they'll go on their break and come back so much more refreshed. Because also when we see that defiance, then we know that they're not regulated and they're not ready to move on to the next task.
And I also think all the scheduled breaks and times have kind of avoided, or kind of, because we don't really see right now, and we haven't in a while, multiple, because obviously sometimes if one child is unregulated and their vocalizations are very loud, and oftentimes you then see other kids react to it. But
it's a domino effect.
Yeah, because we have these scheduled breaks, I'm finding less of that because our kids are more regulated overall.
Yep.
Because they're getting the break before they need it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of just keeping the classroom calm.
We keep our classroom as calm as we can, and then we have specific areas that are boundaried off for different needs for sure. Yeah. We also have individual choice boards with sensory items and we keep their sensory items, like, for the most part, very available to them or in like their space. Like, they each have like a 3-tiered bin, and some of them in their drawer will have compression vests or weighted blankets, and those things are like around so that they can utilize them if they're escalated before they get to that break. We have the choice boards to help guide them to tell us what it is that they need.
And I know we've also touched before in another episode, I don't remember how far into it, but I know we've also touched briefly on the fact that not everybody feels this way, but we allow those breaks, and maybe not with a preferred activity, but we allow those sensory breaks pretty much whenever. The kids get a choice. If they are doing their independent work and that's the expectation, and we are seeing they are unregulated, then they will always have a choice to work or take a break.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean they get a preferred, but they will have options to sit in the calming corner or the sensory room, and they will be able to go and regulate themselves with one of us if they're unregulated, with one of us, and go work on their breathing and do what they need to do, and then come back to what they need to do.
And we work hard on teaching them how to functionally communicate that too. Yeah. Like using visuals, using their AAC, encouraging them to communicate, I am not okay. I am not down for this right now. I need to move on.
Yeah.
And they always have that option, because like, what is the point in forcing them to sit somewhere while they're dysregulated to complete something? Like, for what? Like, the biggest skill at the end of the day is that they're able to functionally communicate and regulate themselves. Yeah. That's more important than matching numbers at the moment. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. And like we've said before, I'm pretty sure we've talked about this, but again, if then a student, yes, the expectation will be for us that they eventually come back and do what they were expected to do once they're regulated.
Yep, the expectation is still there.
Yeah, the expectation is still there. And if it doesn't happen that day, we also have conversations with our students, especially during reward time or something, or tokens or whatever, where we will talk about the fact that they didn't earn their token for that, but they should be proud of themselves for being able to regulate their bodies and make safe choices.
And they may be rewarded in a different way for making a safe choice. Like, they may get something that's not their most preferred reward, but it's like, we can offer you this because of the safe choice you made to regulate your body. Yeah. But we weren't able to get back to completing our independent or doing our teacher time or whatever. So you're not earning this specific thing, but you should be very proud of yourself for that.
Yeah.
And we've always been on the same page with that, I think, which is really good. Yeah. And something that, like, I think we both stand pretty firm on. Yeah. I think it's like part of both of our philosophies that, like, self-regulation is so important above a lot of other things, because it is like a life skill that will carry you through your entire life. Yeah. Something else that we have had to do is shift student and staff schedules to meet safety needs of students. And this helps us kind of meet their sensory diet. Yep. If we have a student who is unable to or is triggered by going outside, however, they require a certain amount of staff or they require certain things, we have to pivot. Mm-hmm. That might mean changing our lunch. It might mean pivoting the kids' schedule a little bit, because at the end of the day, it makes our classroom run more safely and smoothly. And we get creative. We make sure that these kids are, outside or accessing their sensory preferred as much as they can.
Yeah.
But it requires flexibility on our part and flexibility on the kids' part.
Yeah.
Which
We're
is just a reality of the job. Would we like to take our lunch, at a typical lunchtime? Yes.
Does it happen?
No. There are some years that I've taken lunch at 10:15 in the morning because my student needed help with eating or help with outside. They couldn't handle outside.
Yeah.
Independently at that point. We do what we have to do. We work towards independence.
Yep.
But the goal is safety.
Yep. And we talk about that all the time. We also talk about the fact that as EAs, as educators, we know that there is not enough of us.
No. There never will be.
No.
I think you could put one per class.
No.
And you'd still find somewhere where there's a gap for sure.
And so that's definitely something Sophie and I try to resolve on our own when it comes to like, okay, we know we don't have a body for here, but this is what we need.
Yeah.
So how can we make this work? And we've changed our lunches at least twice.
Yeah.
This year.
Yep.
Where it's not ideal.
No.
We don't want to have to change our lunches. We don't want to have to, again, like I think we're at that right now. One of us goes at 10. No, we changed it. That was when we thought we might have 3 for a bit.
Yes.
But we did not. We've changed it so that now we wait later.
Yeah.
And one of us ends up having to go pretty late in the day.
Yeah.
But it's because we need 2 of us available at certain points of the day. And that's what works for our classroom. And we just shift as needed. It's just what we do.
Flexibility on a daily basis too. Like we're coming into new things right now where we're now seeing behavior spikes after lunch. So not only are we going to pivot our program, we're going to pivot our lunches to make sure that we have as many bodies as we can possibly have in the room at that time to make sure that we are doing the things to meet our students' sensory diets at that time so that we can be back and regulated and back to learning for most of the afternoon. And that's on flexibility.
Yeah.
It's just part of the job.
Yeah.
Okay, we just want to thank you guys for listening so much. Obviously, this has been a really good time to reflect on the joy of celebrating the holidays, especially through the lens of special education. We want to emphasize the importance of kindness and understanding and community during the holiday season, making notes of what your friends and family celebrate, and being sure to honor them in the way that they celebrate. More inclusive. I know for me, I just want to wish everybody a happy holidays and a happy new year, and we will see you in the new year.
Yes, happy holidays. I'm hoping everybody had a nice, relaxing time off. We all deserve it. We all need it.
And we're back to the chaos in a couple days. So this has been episode 5, Calm, Bright, and Inclusive, Navigating the Holidays in Special Education. Thanks, guys.
Bye.